The human envoy, Captain Elias Kane, stepped onto the shining platform of crystal that served as the landing bay of the Veyari throne world. His boots echoed faintly against the surface, and for a moment, he felt like he was walking on glass suspended above the stars. Beyond the platform, towering spires of living crystal rose high into the atmosphere, glowing softly in pale blues and silvers. They looked less like buildings and more like frozen lightning bolts that had been carefully carved into palaces. The Veyari were masters of artistry and technology, and their capital reflected it. Yet despite the beauty around him, Elias could feel the cold eyes of the alien guards fixed on him. Their tall, lean frames were wrapped in armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Their faces were expressionless, their gazes sharp, as though they saw in him nothing but a fragile intruder. He reminded himself to breathe slowly. He was here as Earth's representative, sent to negotiate terms of peace. Humanity's colonies on the outer edge of known space had come into conflict with the Veyari Empire, and only diplomacy stood between survival and destruction. Elias knew the risks. He had been told again and again that the Veyari respected only strength, and that humans were still considered weak newcomers among the stars. A voice called out in a flowing, melodic tone. "The Queen will see you now, human." Elias lifted his chin. His heart pounded, but he walked forward, refusing to show any hesitation. The great hall of the Veyari Queen stretched before him like a dream made of crystal and light. Pillars of translucent stone arched toward a ceiling that shimmered like the night sky itself. Streams of radiant energy pulsed through the walls, giving the impression that the palace was alive. At the far end of the hall sat the throne, carved from a single shard of luminous crystal, and upon it sat the Queen. She was regal and imposing, her figure tall and elegant, her skin a faint silver hue that caught the light. A crown of intricate crystal rested upon her brow, and her eyes, narrow, cold, and brilliant, studied him with the detached calm of a ruler who had seen countless envoys come and go. Around her stood advisors and nobles, their long robes trailing like waves across the polished floor. When Elias approached the throne, he bowed slightly in respect, but not too low. He remembered his training. Humility would be seen as weakness, but arrogance would be seen as insult. "Your Majesty," Elias said in a clear, steady voice, "I am Captain Elias Kane of Earth. I come as an envoy of the United Colonies of Humanity. I bring words of peace and a request for dialogue." The Queen did not immediately respond. Instead, she looked down at him as if he were no more important than a drifting leaf. Her silence stretched, and Elias could hear faint whispers ripple among the nobles. Finally she spoke, her tone calm and distant. "Human." She said the word as though it carried no more weight than dust. "Another fragile creature seeking mercy from my empire. We know your kind. You wander the stars without strength, without wisdom, clinging to survival in small, scattered colonies. Why should the Veyari even acknowledge your words?" The hall grew quiet. The nobles' expressions ranged from amusement to disdain. Elias could feel their eyes pressing against him like invisible weights, testing whether he would falter. But Elias stood tall. "Because humanity seeks not to be your enemy," he replied evenly. "We seek a path where both our peoples may prosper, rather than waste lives in endless war." The Queen tilted her head slightly, her silver hair catching the light. For a moment, Elias thought he saw the faintest curve of a smile, though it was not a warm one. "You speak boldly for one so frail," she said, "but bold words are empty when carried by a fragile body. You do not understand strength. You do not understand what it means to rule. I do not see why I should waste my time with this meeting." Her words were sharp, but Elias did not flinch. He had expected dismissal. He had prepared for scorn, yet he held her gaze steadily, refusing to look away. And then it happened. The Queen's eyes, sharp and cold, met his fully. For the briefest of moments, something flickered across her face. Her gaze froze. The faint, practiced mask of superiority faltered. Elias did not understand why, but he saw it clearly. Recognition. The Queen leaned back slightly in her throne. Her composure rattled. Around them, the nobles noticed as well. A hush fell over the chamber as though the air itself held its breath. "What?" she whispered so softly that only those closest could hear. "Your eyes." Elias blinked, confused. His eyes? They were nothing special. Just gray-blue, ordinary by human standards. Yet the way she stared at them, as if they contained some long-forgotten truth, made him uneasy. The queen's hand tightened on the arm of her throne. Her advisors leaned in, whispering urgently, but she lifted a hand to silence them. Her gaze remained locked on Elias, unblinking. For the first time since his arrival, he felt that he was not the one being measured. Instead, it was as if the queen herself had been struck by something beyond her control. Elias spoke carefully. "Is something wrong, Your Majesty?" Her expression hardened again, but the crack in her mask had already been seen. She rose slowly from her throne, the crystalline robes flowing around her like liquid light. When she spoke again, her voice carried a strange tension beneath its surface calm. "You are not what you appear to be, human," she said. "Your eyes, they are not yours alone." Elias frowned slightly, unsure what she meant, but the queen gave no further explanation. Instead, she turned sharply to her advisors. "Prepare the seer's chamber," she commanded. "This envoy will be tested." The nobles exchanged surprised glances, whispers rising in waves. The seer's chamber was known among the Veyari as a place reserved only for those who might hold a role in prophecy or destiny. That the queen would invoke such a thing for a human envoy was unthinkable. Elias stood silently, his heart racing but his expression calm. He had no idea what awaited him in this so-called chamber. Yet something in the queen's frozen reaction told him that his mission was no longer a simple matter of diplomacy. As the guards stepped forward to escort him, Elias stole one last glance at the queen. She was staring at him still, her gaze sharp but troubled, as if she had seen a ghost standing before her. And for the first time since his arrival, Elias felt the balance of power shift ever so slightly. He had come here to plead for peace, but now something greater had been stirred, something the queen herself could not ignore. The meeting of worlds had only just begun. The seer's chamber was deep within the palace, carved from living crystal that pulsed faintly with light. The Veyari believed the chamber carried echoes of their ancestors, a place where truth could not be hidden. Only those the queen deemed important enough were ever brought inside, and most who entered carried the weight of destiny upon their shoulders. Captain Elias Kane did not know this. He followed the guards with steady steps, though his mind was restless. The queen's reaction to his eyes still haunted him. Her words echoed in his mind. "They are not yours alone." What had she seen in him? The guard stopped before a wide archway. Inside, the chamber glowed with a soft silver light. The air hummed faintly as though alive with whispers too quiet to catch. In the center stood a raised platform surrounded by spiraling crystal pillars. Elias was motioned forward. The queen entered behind him, her long crystalline robe sweeping gracefully across the floor. Her expression was calm once more, though Elias noticed the stiffness in her movements. She was not as certain as she appeared. Her advisors followed, murmuring among themselves. One of the nobles, a tall Veyari elder with narrow golden eyes, spoke sharply. "Your Majesty, this is unnecessary. He is just a human. To waste the seer's chamber on him is an insult to our traditions." The queen's gaze flicked toward him, cool and commanding. "You did not see what I saw," she said. Silence. The elder bowed his head, though his expression tightened with displeasure. Elias stepped onto the platform, unsure of what was expected. The queen raised her hand, and the crystal pillars surrounding him began to glow brighter. Lines of light crawled across their surfaces, connecting to form patterns. A low hum filled the chamber, and Elias felt a strange warmth pressing against him, as if the air itself was examining him. The queen spoke softly, her eyes fixed on him. "This chamber reveals what lies beneath appearances. If you are nothing more than a human envoy, it will show. But if there is something more, it will not hide." Elias held her gaze steady and calm. "Then let it show." The light flared. Images flickered across the crystal surfaces, shapes, colors, echoes of forgotten histories. The nobles leaned forward, whispering among themselves. The queen's eyes widened slightly as she saw the patterns forming. There, within the light, appeared a figure, tall, robed in shadows and stars, with eyes that glowed in the same shade as Elias's own. The image lasted only a moment, but it was enough. Gasps filled the chamber. The queen's lips pressed into a thin line. She raised her hand, and the vision faded, leaving only the faint glow of the crystals. "It is as I feared," she murmured, almost to herself. Elias frowned. "Feared? What did you see?" The queen turned away, her robes flowing like liquid crystal. "Something that should not exist," she said softly. Then louder for all to hear, "This human carries the mark of the Starseer." The nobles erupted into voices, some in disbelief, others in alarm. The golden-eyed elder spoke above the rest. Impossible. The Starseer is a myth, a tale to guide children. No human could carry such a mark. The queen silenced him with a single look. And yet you saw it with your own eyes. Elias's heart beat faster. He had no idea what a Starseer was, but it was clear the word carried weight. He stepped down from the platform, looking at the queen directly. What does it mean? He asked. What is a Starseer? The queen did not answer immediately. Instead, she dismissed the nobles with a sharp command. Reluctantly, they filed out, their whispers echoing through the chamber until only Elias, the queen, and a few guards remained. She faced him once more, her expression unreadable. The Starseer, she began slowly, is a figure from our oldest records. It is said that in times of great peril, a being with eyes like the void between stars would appear. That being would not belong fully to the Veyari, nor to any single people, but would carry the power to unite civilizations or destroy them. Elias listened carefully. He had expected legends, but not ones that pointed directly at him. And you think I am this Starseer? The queen's silver gaze narrowed. I do not think. The chamber has shown it. Your eyes are proof enough. I should dismiss you as a coincidence, but I cannot. Something in you forces me to hesitate. Her words were calm, but Elias noticed a slight tremor in her hands. The great queen of the Veyari was unsettled, and he was the cause. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then she turned, walking toward the exit. Come. There is more you must see. They moved through quiet halls until they reached a smaller chamber lined with ancient murals etched into the crystal walls. The images told stories, armies clashing, empires rising and falling, and always in the center, a figure with star-like eyes. Sometimes the figure raised civilizations into greatness, sometimes it brought ruin. The queen stopped before one particular mural. It showed the Starseer standing between two armies, one of the Veyari, the other of an unknown race. The two sides, once enemies, were lowering their weapons, their heads bowed. This, the queen said softly, is what I saw in your eyes. The possibility of unity, or of destruction. Elias studied the mural in silence. He was just a man, a soldier-turned-envoy, carrying the hopes of his people. And yet here he was, staring at a prophecy written long before humans had ever stepped among the stars. I am not a legend, he said at last. I am only human. The queen turned to him, her expression sharp. Do not mistake humility for truth. Whether you believe it or not, you carry something greater than yourself. That is why I cannot ignore you. That is why I cannot simply dismiss you as another envoy. Her voice carried both reluctance and conviction, as though she hated the truth she was forced to accept. Elias held her gaze. Then what will you do with me? The queen's eyes lingered on him, cold yet conflicted. Finally, she spoke. I will test you. If you are truly what the chamber showed, you will endure. If not, you will break and your people will be forgotten. Elias nodded slowly. Then test me. The queen turned sharply, her robes whispering against the crystal floor. Very well. Tomorrow you will face the trials of endurance. Survive them, and perhaps I will consider your words of peace. Fail, and I will ensure your name is erased from memory. Her tone was final, but Elias could see the hesitation in her eyes. She did not want to believe in him, yet she could not deny what she had seen. It was not faith that guided her. It was fear. As Elias was led away to his chambers, he felt the weight of something greater than diplomacy pressing down on him. He had come to speak of peace, but now he carried the burden of prophecy. And in the silence of the crystal halls, the queen remained alone, staring at the mural. Her hands trembled slightly as she whispered to herself, Why a human? Why now? The night passed slowly in the guest chamber given to Captain Elias Kane. The room was carved from the same crystal that shaped the rest of the palace, but it felt more like a cage than a gift. Light pulsed faintly through the walls, casting long shadows that never stilled. Elias lay awake on the low bed, staring at the ceiling, his thoughts tangled. He had come to speak of peace. Instead, he was now tied to an alien prophecy he could not understand. The queen's words repeated in his mind. You carry the mark of the Starseer. He clenched his fists. I am not a legend. I am just human. Yet deep down, he could not shake the image from the seer's chamber, the figure with eyes like his standing between armies. A soft sound interrupted his thoughts. The crystal door shifted open and someone stepped inside. Elias sat up quickly, tense but relaxed slightly when he saw who it was. It was not a guard. It was the Queen's daughter. She was younger, her silver features softer than her mother's, her gaze curious rather than cold. She wore a simple robe, not the heavy crystalline garments of the court. For a moment she studied him silently. "You should not be awake," she said softly. Her voice carried a calm rhythm like flowing water. Elias stood. "Hard to sleep when you're told you might be tested to death tomorrow." Her lips curved faintly, almost a smile, though her eyes remained serious. "You are brave to speak so lightly." "Most would be trembling." Elias shrugged. "Fear doesn't help. And besides, I've seen worse. Humans are used to surviving against impossible odds." She tilted her head, studying him. "That is what interests me. You are—" "Different," he raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" She hesitated before answering. "When my mother looked into your eyes, she froze. I have never seen her falter, not once. She rules with certainty, with strength. Yet when she looked at you, it was as though she saw a ghost from the past." Elias said nothing. He remembered that moment clearly. The Queen's mask of control had cracked, even if only for a heartbeat. The daughter stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Do you know the story of the Starseer?" "I've heard parts," Elias said. "Enough to know I don't like being compared to it." She moved to the wall, brushing her hand across the surface. The crystal shimmered, revealing a mural hidden beneath. It showed stars, vast and endless, with a figure standing among them. The same star-like eyes glowed from its face. "The Starseer was not one of us," she explained. "The records say it was a wanderer, a traveler between worlds. The Starseer appeared when empires were at their peak, when arrogance blinded them. It came not to rule but to guide, sometimes toward greatness, sometimes toward ruin." Elias stepped closer, staring at the mural. "And you think I look like this figure?" She nodded. "Not in form, but in the eyes. My people believe the eyes of the Starseer cannot be mistaken. They are like stars themselves, carrying the weight of fate." He sighed. "Where I come from, we don't believe in fate. We believe in choices." Her expression softened. "Perhaps that is why the chamber showed you. Maybe you are here because of the choices you will make." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then Elias asked, "Why are you telling me this? Doesn't it go against your mother's wishes?" The daughter looked away, her silver hair catching the faint glow of the walls. "Because I am not like her. She sees you as a danger. I see you as a possibility. If the prophecy is true, then you could change everything. And if it is false, then you should at least know why you are feared." Elias studied her carefully. She was not mocking him nor dismissing him like the nobles. She was curious, perhaps even hopeful. "I don't know if I can be what your people think I am," he admitted. "But I do know I can fight for peace. That's why I came." She met his gaze, and for a moment the weight of titles and empires seemed to fade. She saw not a human envoy, but a man determined to stand despite the odds. "Tomorrow," she said, "the trials will be hard. They are not meant to be fair. They are meant to break you. My mother wants proof that you are more than words. She wants to see if the Starseer's strength is truly in you." Elias gave a small nod. "Then I'll survive. Not for prophecy, for peace." The daughter gave the faintest smile, then turned toward the door. "We will see. Remember, Captain Kane, sometimes legends begin with those who do not believe in them." When she left, Elias sat back on the bed, staring at the mural she had revealed. The figure's glowing eyes seemed to stare back at him as if asking a silent question. "What will you choose?" The next day, the Queen's court gathered once more. Word of the Starseer had spread through the palace like fire. Nobles whispered in corners, debating what it meant. Some feared the human. Others mocked the very idea. But none ignored him. Elias stood in the center of the great hall, his hands steady at his sides. The Queen sat on her throne, her expression colder than ever. Yet Elias noticed the faint shadow of hesitation in her eyes when she looked at him. "Captain Elias Kane," she announced, her voice carrying through the hall. "You stand accused of carrying a mark that does not belong to your kind. You claim to seek peace, but I cannot trust words alone. You will face the trials of endurance. Survive them, and I will hear your voice again. Fail, and you will be forgotten." The nobles cheered or scoffed, their voices filling the chamber. The golden-eyed elder stepped forward. "Yes, Majesty. Let him prove himself. If he breaks, then all will see the truth." The Queen raised her hand, silencing the noise. Her gaze locked on Elias. "Do you accept this test?" Elias lifted his chin. I do. The Queen's eyes narrowed. For a moment he thought he saw the same flicker as before. Uncertainty, maybe even fear, but her voice remained steady. Then so it shall be. The hall doors opened and guards led Elias away. The nobles murmured behind him, but he walked without faltering. As he left, he caught one last glimpse of the Queen. She was staring after him, her fingers gripping the arm of her throne tightly. Her mask of control was still in place, but Elias could see the truth beneath it. She was afraid of his eyes, afraid of what they meant, afraid that the fragile human before her might truly be the one her people had whispered about for centuries. And Elias, though he did not yet know the trials ahead, carried with him a quiet resolve. He would not be broken, not by fear, not by prophecy, and not by the Queen's doubt. The dawn light filtered through the crystal spires, scattering soft silver patterns across the palace halls. Captain Elias Kane had hardly slept. He could still feel the weight of the prophecy pressing on him. The Starseer, a figure he did not understand, now seemed tied to every step he took. The Queen's words echoed in his mind. Survive the trials and I will hear your voice again. Fail, and you will be forgotten. Elias followed the guards through narrow corridors he had never seen before. Each step echoed off the walls, blending with the faint hum of energy that seemed to pulse through the entire palace. They reached a massive chamber with walls of pure crystal that shimmered like liquid silver. In the center, a series of platforms rose from the ground, floating just above the floor. The Queen's daughter appeared again, standing to the side, observing silently. She said nothing, but her eyes held a strange mixture of curiosity and hope. From the shadowed corners of the chamber, the Queen herself emerged. Her presence was like gravity, drawing attention without effort. She stood at the far end of the platforms, her silver robes flowing. Her expression was unreadable, though Elias could see the faint tension in her hands. Captain Kane, she said, her voice steady and cold. Today you will face 3 trials. Each is designed to measure your strength, your wisdom, and your spirit. These trials are not games. They are tests of survival. If you fail, your path ends here. Elias nodded. I am ready. The Queen's eyes flicked to the first platform. Then begin. The first trial tested his strength. As Elias stepped onto the platform, it rose into the air. Below, the floor dropped away, leaving him suspended above a vast chasm of glowing crystal. From the walls emerged holographic beasts, translucent and shimmering, designed to simulate combat. They lunged at him with speed and precision. Elias dodged and leaped, using movements honed from years of training. He could feel the weight of each strike, the challenge to his endurance. The beasts struck again and again, their attacks relentless. Yet Elias adapted. He observed their patterns, predicted their movements, and found openings. With each strike he dodged or countered, his confidence grew. After what felt like hours, the final beast collapsed into the glowing floor. Elias's chest heaved as he caught his breath. He had survived. The Queen nodded slightly, though her expression did not soften. Strength is only the first test. Wisdom follows. The second platform appeared, lower and narrower than the first. Elias stepped onto it, and instantly the world shifted. The platform became a moving puzzle, with walls sliding and blocks shifting. Symbols glowed on the surfaces, ancient Veyari writing he could not read. The task was simple in description, but impossible in execution. Reach the center before the walls trapped him completely. Elias's mind raced. He studied the shifting patterns, looking for clues in the movement of the blocks. He could not rely on force here. Only observation and quick thinking would save him. Time seemed to slow as he leapt from block to block, avoiding crushing walls and sudden drops. His heart pounded in rhythm with the movement of the platforms. For a moment he misstepped and nearly fell, but he grabbed a glowing edge, pulling himself to safety. At last, he reached the center, a small pedestal of solid crystal. The symbols around him glowed brighter, and he felt a faint hum in the air like a pulse of energy. He had passed the trial of wisdom. The Queen's gaze followed him. Impressive, she said. But the final trial tests not your body or mind, but your spirit. The third platform rose slowly. This one was different. As Elias stepped forward, the walls disappeared, leaving nothing but open air. Below, the endless chasm glowed with soft silver light, and around him, phantoms appeared, visions of his fears, his doubts, his failures. He saw the faces of those he had failed to protect, the colonies he had been unable to save, and the soldiers he had lost in battle. The phantoms whispered, taunted, and moved closer. Elias felt a cold weight in his chest. Every instinct told him to run, to flee from the visions. But then he remembered the Queen's daughter, her words from the night before. Sometimes legends begin with those who do not believe in them. Elias took a deep breath. He focused on the present, not the past. The phantoms lunged, but he did not react with fear. Instead, he faced each vision, acknowledging it without letting it control him. Each step forward weakened their hold, and with every forward motion the light below him grew brighter. The Queen watched, her eyes narrowing. For the first time, Elias noticed something flicker in her expression, concern, perhaps even respect. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Elias reached the center of the platform. The phantoms dissolved, leaving only calm light around him. He stood tall, breathing heavily but victorious. The Queen's voice echoed through the chamber. "You have endured all trials, strength, wisdom, and spirit. Each you have demonstrated in abundance. You have survived the test of the seer's chamber. Few humans, if any, could have done the same." Elias stepped down from the platform, his legs unsteady but his resolve firm. He had faced the impossible and emerged intact. The Queen rose from her throne, moving closer. Her silver eyes fixed on him, searching, calculating. "You have passed the trials, Captain Kane. But know this, endurance alone does not define the Starseer. True strength lies in how one chooses to act when faced with power, when faced with choice." Elias met her gaze steadily. "I do not seek power. I seek peace." A faint tension left her posture. She seemed less certain of her suspicion, though her voice remained formal. "Perhaps you are more than a mere human. Perhaps there is truth in the chamber's vision. We will see if your words match your deeds." At that moment, the Queen's daughter stepped forward. "You have done well," she said softly. "Even if my mother will not admit it, you have proven yourself. Now she must decide if your mission can continue." Elias nodded, acknowledging her words, though he knew the path ahead was still uncertain. Passing the trials had not changed the delicate balance of trust or the danger that lurked outside the palace walls. Outside the chamber, the nobles whispered in awe and disbelief. Some grudgingly accepted Elias's endurance. Others remained skeptical, refusing to believe a human could surpass their expectations. But the Queen remained silent, observing him carefully, as if measuring not just his actions, but his very presence. Later, in the private halls of the palace, the Queen walked beside her daughter, speaking in low tones. "He survived. I cannot deny it, and yet, can I trust him? He is human. The colonies are fragile, unpredictable, and still, there is something in his eyes. Something I cannot ignore." Her daughter said nothing, only watched her mother's face. For once, the Queen seemed conflicted, torn between the instincts of her people and the vision the seer's chamber had revealed. Meanwhile, Elias returned to his chambers, exhausted but resolute. He had faced alien beasts, puzzles, and visions of fear. He had proven himself in every way the Veyari could test him. And yet, he knew the real challenge was only beginning. Earning the trust of a queen who feared him, and uniting two civilizations on the brink of conflict. He sat by the window, looking out at the sprawling city of crystal and light below. The stars beyond were silent witnesses, indifferent and eternal. Elias took a deep breath. He could not predict the future, but he could act in the present, and that was enough. Tomorrow he would meet the Queen again. Tomorrow he would speak words that might save countless lives. But tonight, he allowed himself a small measure of peace, knowing he had endured trials that no ordinary human could. The path of the Starseer, whatever it truly meant, was beginning. The sun had not yet risen over the crystalline spires of the Veyari capital, but the palace was already alive with movement. Guards, nobles, and advisors hurried through the halls, their voices hushed but urgent. Rumors of the human captain's endurance through the seer's trials had spread, and now all awaited the Queen's decision. Captain Elias Kane walked carefully through the corridors, escorted by two silent guards. His mind replayed the events of the trials, the beasts, the shifting platforms, the visions of fear, and yet, despite exhaustion, he felt an inner strength he had never known before. He had proven himself to the Veyari in ways no one had expected, but proving himself in trials was only the beginning. The real challenge lay in earning the Queen's trust and convincing her to believe in peace between their worlds. He reached the throne hall, its crystalline walls shimmering faintly in the pre-dawn light. The nobles had already assembled, their murmurs filling the chamber. Some faces were skeptical, others curious, but at the center of all eyes was the Queen. She sat upon her throne, tall, imposing, yet noticeably more tense than before. Her silver eyes scanned the hall and finally rested on him. "Captain Elias Kane," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber, "you have endured the trials. You have demonstrated strength, wisdom, and spirit. You have surpassed what any human could be expected to achieve. And yet," her gaze narrowed, piercing, as if weighing the very essence of his being, "this is not enough. Words and trials matter little if the heart is not true." Elias met her gaze steadily. "My heart is true, Your Majesty. I seek peace, not power. I stand not for myself, but for the survival of our peoples. I ask only that we work together to prevent needless destruction." The Queen studied him in silence. For the first time, the hall seemed to hold its breath. Even the nobles quieted, sensing the gravity of the moment. "Many will see you as weak," the Queen said finally. "A human who stands before the Veyari, speaking of peace while my empire has known war for centuries. They will doubt you. They will mock you." "I am aware," Elias replied. "But humans are judged not only by strength but by resolve, by courage, by the willingness to act even when all odds are against us. I cannot promise perfection, but I can promise effort, and I can promise that my actions will always aim to protect life, not destroy it." The Queen's silver eyes lingered on him. For a long moment nothing moved except the faint pulse of the crystalline walls. Then she rose slowly from her throne. Her presence filled the hall like a living force of gravity. "You speak boldly," she said, "and yet you speak honestly. That is rare among humans, and rarer still among envoys of other species. Perhaps there is truth in what the seer's chamber revealed. Perhaps the prophecies speak not of destruction, but of possibility." Elias nodded, though he felt the tension in the chamber rise. He could sense the nobles' skepticism, their whispered doubts, yet he did not falter. The Queen's daughter stepped forward, her eyes shining with hope. "Mother," she said softly, "he has proven himself. He has survived the trials. If we judge only by tradition, we may lose an opportunity that has appeared once in centuries. Perhaps it is time to trust what we see, not what we expect." The Queen's gaze flicked toward her daughter. For the first time, her expression softened slightly. She turned back to Elias. "Very well," she said finally. "I acknowledge you not as a mere human envoy, but as someone who carries the possibility foretold by the seer. You are more than I expected." A ripple ran through the hall. Nobles whispered, some in disbelief, others in cautious admiration. Even the golden-eyed elder who had doubted Elias from the start lowered his head in reluctant respect. Elias bowed slightly, carefully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will not betray your trust." The Queen inclined her head, acknowledging his words. "You have my attention. That is all I offer for now. Words will matter little if your actions fail. Tomorrow your mission begins in earnest. You will meet my advisors, study our defenses, and prepare to negotiate terms that will protect both our peoples." Elias nodded. "I am ready." The Queen's daughter smiled faintly, and for a moment the chamber felt lighter. The tension of prophecy, trials, and doubt seemed to shift slightly. Elias had not only survived the seer's chamber, he had survived the Queen's judgment. But the real test, he knew, lay ahead. Winning the Queen's acknowledgement was only the first step. To achieve lasting peace, he would need to act to inspire, and to navigate the complex politics of an empire unaccustomed to trust in outsiders. That evening, as Elias prepared for rest, he found the Queen's daughter waiting by the window. She did not speak immediately. Instead, she motioned for him to look at the view. The sprawling city of crystal and light stretched endlessly, its towers reaching for the sky, its bridges arching over glowing rivers. The stars above were bright, clear, and infinite. "You have begun a path few can even imagine," she said quietly. "My mother feared you at first, but now she must consider the possibility that humans are not weak, that we may find allies in those we once dismissed." Elias turned to her. "I do not seek fear or favor, only understanding. If both our peoples survive, it will be because we learn to see each other not as enemies, but as partners." She nodded. "Perhaps that is the lesson the Starseer is meant to teach. That strength is not always in power, but in trust, in courage, and in the choices we make. Elias looked out at the city again, feeling the enormity of the task ahead. It was not a simple matter of negotiation. He would face prejudice, suspicion, and hostility, not just from the Veyari, but from humans as well. And yet he felt a quiet determination growing within him. He had survived the impossible. He had earned acknowledgement from the Queen. Now he would act. The next morning, the Queen convened her council. Humans and Veyari sat together, a mixture of tension and curiosity in the room. Elias stood at the center, flanked by 2 aides from Earth, and faced the most important assembly of his life. "My people have suffered enough," Elias began, his voice steady, carrying across the hall. "And your people have known war and uncertainty for centuries. But now we have an opportunity, not as enemies but as partners. The survival of both our civilizations depends on trust, it depends on cooperation, and it depends on choosing the future, rather than clinging to the past." The room remained silent for a moment, the weight of his words sinking in. Then slowly the Queen spoke. "You have endured, Captain Kane. You have proven your strength, your wisdom, and your spirit. You speak truthfully and with courage. For that, I will grant you the authority to negotiate on behalf of your people." A murmur ran through the council. Some nodded, others exchanged surprised glances. Elias could sense skepticism, but the Queen's final judgment was absolute. "You will be our voice in this effort," she continued, "and we will listen. Not as rulers judging subjects, but as civilizations seeking survival and prosperity together." Elias bowed deeply, humbled but determined. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will not fail you or your people. Together we will find a path forward." The Queen inclined her head, a rare sign of approval. Then, turning to her daughter, she whispered softly, "Perhaps humans are not as fragile as I believed." The daughter smiled, though Elias could not hear her words. Yet he sensed her hope, her belief that the path ahead, though difficult, could succeed. As the council meeting concluded, Elias looked around the chamber. For the first time he saw not distrust or fear, but the potential for unity. The Veyari and humans were not enemies. They could be allies. And though the path would be hard, he felt a quiet certainty that they could succeed, if courage, trust, and determination guided them. Outside the palace, the first light of dawn painted the city in soft silver and gold. Captain Elias Kane stepped onto the balcony, gazing out at the world he had come to protect. The stars above were endless, but he no longer felt small before them. He had earned recognition, passed trials, and faced judgment. And now he carried with him the power to shape not only the fate of humans, but of the Veyari as well. The Queen's choice had been made. She had acknowledged him. And with that acknowledgement, a fragile but powerful hope was born. A hope that humanity could rise, not by conquest, but by courage, wisdom, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The path of the Starseer had begun,